Hello and welcome to the Neal and Amie podcast. This series of episodes is called Wayfinder.
Why? Because this world, the people in it and the pressures of it can jack you up and they can cause you to lose your way. Next thing you know, you're overweight, unmotivated, frustrated with the relationships around you. Your life shattered in pieces and you're watching episodes of Dr. Phil and Jerry Springer just to feel normal again.
This show is about helping people find joy in the middle of challenges because life is too short to live miserable.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 16. Last week, we were in the subject of gut guidance. And
gut guidance, gut guidance. It sounds like a Singing in the Rain kind of song.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm so glad that Amie is back with us today.
Holla.
Welcome back, Amie.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Erik.
Yes, she's got all her voices and personalities in line. What personality do you plan on being today, Amie?
I don't know. My go-to is Moira on Schitt's Creek, but you know I could be the girl on.
I felt like I was up Schitt's Creek. Is that part of the?
Could be. I don't know. You picked it. You chose it.
Oh.
You brought the canoe and the paddle. I just made a way.
Ooh, dang! Get it, girl.
I also like the girl on How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. That's a fun character.
Yeah, she would be. Yeah, those are great characters. Okay, so Moira is the one for today. So with gut guidance, what we covered last week was each one of us have this internal guidance system. It is, I'm playing on it, calling it the IGS, just being silly, but reality is that our gut, if you could call it intuition, it's an internal compass that's built within us. And characters like Indiana Jones and people like that made a way through obstacles, opposition, and they set sail. They went to the great land that they were wanting to. They found the Holy Grail, whatever you want to call it, and it was the gut that led the way. Things that we talked about last week that are obstacles are things like pleasing people. Fear, just fear in general. It could be fear of people, it could be fear of the unknown, all the what ifs. Those are huge obstacles that can get in the way, cause you to stay stuck where you are. Additionally, what we added was the layer of every one of us built into our creation, built into the DNA of humankind is this intuition. Some of us have very strong intuitions because we've exercised those muscles and we've gotten much better at understanding our gut instincts. Others, though, they ignore those things and they end up going down roads that they never want to go down. So when you couple that thought with the reality of what we believe, which is that by faith, we have a creator who indwells or lives within us and adds the layer of guidance, this internal spirit guidance. Now we have a winning system. We've got our natural guidance system that is built into us just because we're humans. And then we have the supernatural guidance system that helps send signals that say, no, don't go this way, go that way, stop here, wait, back up. All of the different guidance that we lean on so much comes from faith. It comes from what's inside of us. So today, our focus is going to be a lot more on the negative effects of not following your gut. Dum, dum, dum.
And they are there.
So let's jump into these negative effects. What's going on with Moira over there today?
Well, interestingly enough, we have this amazing company that prints our T-shirts for Ewings. Yes. And she randomly just texts me that they're coming up for like an early dinner at 3:30 and wondered if she needed to make a reservation. So I was texting our daughter, who's the host on duty at the moment, to please make Personally Yours. Shout out to Personally Yours in Bakersfield off Landco Drive. Amazing customer service, great couple. Mm-hmm. It's a husband and wife company. I love supporting husband and wife companies.
Because we are one.
We are one. And anyone who knows how hard it is to be married knows how much harder it is to work together with your spouse.
Yes.
So hats off to them, shirts off to them, canvas bags off to them, whatever they print. Anyways, they're coming to dine, and I was texting Quincy to please make sure they have a table at 3:30.
Right on. That's awesome.
So, anywho, yeah, back to what you were saying, which gosh, this topic is like such it's so close to our heart because we have lived more in the consequence of not listening to our gut than probably listening to our gut in the past. So we speak of the at least for me, I can speak of the negative impact of not listening to your gut.
Yes.
More than stars, unicorns, and happy rainbows of listening to your gut and having the gold. What is it? The gold pot with the leprechauns at the end? What is that?
The pot of
the pot of gold.
The pot of gold, yes.
At the end of the rainbow.
So, yeah, this is a real thing.
It is a real thing. And then the early years of a leader's life, the early years of human life, I think the earlier that we can learn to rely upon the system that's built into us, the better we are. So we're entering into, I hate to call it the second half of life, but it is. We're kind of entering into that stage. Amy's in her mid to late 30s, and I'm cracking 40.
I thought you were just going to make one of those menopause jokes and say I was like ahead of the game, and now I'm in my third quarter or something. I was about ready to climb over this table and pound you in the head with that microphone.
Don't do it. Even though it sounds almost kind of fun. But we're learning and have learned, and we're trying to impart to you resources, tools, and little tips that are going to help you live a less miserable, more joyful life.
Absolutely.
And so
you want to avoid these mistakes.
Yes, and these negative effects are very real.
And I think that in the generation before us, they prided themselves on making everything kind of look put together on the outside and not talking about all of the mistakes until they had walked through them, per se. It was like once that hurt and that pain was gone, or once that they had figured it out and they had a little bit more security or a little bit more knowledge in a certain arena, then it was like, okay, now we can talk about it. However, we don't want to wait that long to tell you all of the shortcomings and mistakes and failures that we feel we have walked through. We'd rather just let you know right out the gate so that maybe that will help you not have to walk through some of that pain.
Yes.
Because with pain comes a whole herd of buffalo that have names on their heads that are not fun things. And today we're going to talk about 5 of them that are probably the most impactful in our lives of the negative effects of not listening to your gut.
Yes.
I'm just going to name them off really quick. It's physical sickness, depression, fatigue, seclusion, and loss of creativity and strategy. There are probably another 100,000 of them out there that could have different names, but for Neal and I, in the past 20 years of being married, these are the 5 that have probably taken the biggest...
had the most negative effect on our lives when we didn't listen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's kind of go... Let's jump first, if we can, into depression, because I think depression kind of leads further in. So tell us about that. What do you got for depression?
Well, depression is a sneaky little sucker because most of the time it sneaks up on you in a way. It's like, you know what it's like? Have you guys ever gone to the ocean on a cloudy day and you're like, it's freezing cold out. I'm going to be in my bathing suit because I'm at the beach, but it's overcast, and you'd think because it's overcast, you don't have to put sunscreen on. Anyone?
Oh, yeah. Try, you remember
Worst
my Hawaii
sunburn of my life.
Yeah, I got a sunburn so bad one time by laying in a slightly overcast situation.
Not
on
one
the
time,
back
though.
of my leg, but this one
Twice.
time. 2 times. But it was so bad that I walked around stiff-legged for like several days of our vacation. I looked like I had no knee joints because
Both
the back of my legs
back-to-back
were so
Hawaii trips that my parents took us on, you got sunburnt so bad that you were peeling. We would be there for 2 weeks, and you would, when we'd get back on the plane and we'd get off the plane, it was so crazy.
Why you gotta tell everybody this?
You had it looked like fake snow all over the seat of the airplane.
It's beginning to look a lot like
and on the ground. It was like,
Christmas.
what happened? But your skin was, you actually had a permanent sun scar for a year.
A year later, there was a line in the back of my legs because of this particular sunburn.
Well, that's what depression is like,
Sneaky
my friends.
little devil.
Yes.
Sneaks up on you and scorches your ass.
And you don't even see it coming because you're thinking, It's just overcast.
Yeah. No big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah, but depression, when you have a gut inclination, and let's kind of look at some categories here. Some of our largest mistakes with gut inclinations, they most of the time had to do with people.
Absolutely.
And had to do with, maybe there was a gut instinct like probably shouldn't hire that person. Mm-hmm. Maybe shouldn't make that person a partner in the venture. Mm-hmm. Maybe shouldn't spend a lot of extra time. It kind of goes back to the safe people episodes that we've aired. And if you're in that place where you feel like you've got people in too close that don't need to be, go back to our safe people selector and check those episodes out. But I think people, that's a huge portion of gut instinct impact.
Huge.
In addition, you've got decisions like, are we supposed to move on from a certain venture, from a job, from a position, some of those things. And if you stay too long in a certain spot when you're supposed to move on and your gut's telling you that, typically pain shows up, problems show up, depression shows up, and many of these other negative effects. So I think people, massive one. Another one would be just when you know you're supposed to do something, anything at all, or maybe you're supposed to stop doing something and start doing something else, and you don't take the cues from your gut, then you end up getting rolled over like the big ball on Indiana Jones, just coming at you, and there's just nothing you can do about it. So those are the two main categories I can think of right now.
And environments are huge.
Environments.
So if you're a person who's like sensitive to their environments, that could be like a 75% or more, I would say, on how you view yourself, how you view where you are in life by your environment. What I mean by that is this world is big. There are so many beautiful things to look at. If you're a creative creature, you are like driven by textures and colors and, shapes and all of these different things. And when you get into a little closet with some fluorescent lights above you and you have your little push pin, cork board in front of you and your PC that's like exactly like this, and you have just enough a little elbow room to just work right there, and you're doing that day in and day out, that will kill you mentally.
Yes.
That is like, for a creative person, that's the worst.
Yes.
So environments are huge too. Just as people can change your mood, an environment can change your mood too. I think that we, as humans, we don't give enough attention to all of the things that are coming at us and around us that create how we think, how we feel, what we feel, and then ultimately what comes out of us is a product of all of that other stuff that's hidden in behind the scenes.
Yes.
And I think that depression, I'm not going to go into like the clinical side of it and all of that, but I think that depression is what happens there is it's that lack of hope. I'm going to be stuck in this cubicle the rest of my life.
Yes.
I'm going to be stuck at, I want a house that has 14-foot ceilings, and I'm stuck in a house that has 7.5-foot ceilings, and I feel like the walls are caving in on me.
Yes.
Simple things like that. I really would like to go to Dave's Taco Cart and buy a $8 taco, but I'm in line at Taco Bell. You know what I mean? I mean, there's like little things that like mentally can like get a hold of you, and the next thing you know, we're not grateful that we just have a meal. We are hungry and like anxious for this bigger thing that's out there.
Yeah.
And that becomes our world, and that becomes our viewpoint of ourselves based on our needs. And then the next thing you know, life's horrible, and the dark cloud comes over us, and Lyle with his blanket is in our ear going, "This is such a bad day."
Yep.
And if we had to just chalk that up to anything, it's loss of hope.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so those are some contributing factors to, categories that if you're not paying attention to your gut, negative effects, negative impact starts to happen to you. And in some sense, I think we could almost order these, but we won't.
No.
But, that negative effect of depression, a lot of times that dark can kind of lead to isolation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Fatigue usually is close behind depression, because when you have depression, you're kind of just like stuck in the middle of the road, and you don't want to climb up the road, and you don't want to walk down the road. You're just kind of stuck. And fatigue is not a fun thing. I've had that in my life. The days where your mind is still active and like wanting to do things, but your body you can't support the things and the dreams that you have in your heart anymore. It's almost like you've given up on all of that stuff. And what's really like frustrating about all of that is it's only a small amount of positive. It's only a small amount of hopeful, small amount of laughing, a small amount of good interaction with another human, like real positive, like not negative, condemning, but like total acceptance and love, and that can swing someone from that depression and that fatigue over into the opposite of those categories. Yep. It's very small. It's not it, and then very small over a period of time can get you free and clear of that. And what I mean by that is, if you look up studies just about like what laughing does for a human, we don't even give laughing enough credit. It's like laughing, whatever laughter releases in your body can actually like pull you out of funk.
Absolutely. It's good for the bones.
Right.
Laughter's, they say Erik, medicine. Do you remember laughter is
it best medicine?
It's the best medicine. Better than antidepressants.
Right. Well, why would somebody say that? Because they've actually had like an encounter with true laughter and things like that. I think that looking back over my life, I got pregnant when I was 18, and that was kind of like a side swipe, or not sides. What do you call that when you get hit on the side?
Side bust.
Side bust. And I would never change anything like that. I would never change my circumstance whatsoever, because I have a beautiful baby to prove for that. But the fact of the matter is when you think life is going a certain way and then it doesn't go that way, you have to reorder, reconfigure, look at yourself in the mirror and go, okay, now, that punch came. Now what am I going to do about it? And since you and I getting married at 18 and 20, we have thought life would go a certain way. And collectively, however we thought life was going to go in each, I don't know if you'd call it a cul-de-sac or what, but in each part of that, those journeys, there's times that you just want to go, F it. I don't know what to do. I'm not happy about my circumstance right in this exact moment. I'm not happy about the people I have around my life. Everything seems like nails on a chalkboard right now, and you just want to check out. And when we're talking about gut guidance, it's like in those moments, your gut will tell you a couple things. Your gut will like give you little hints of, okay, either like just chill out, take a breather, or nope, make a quick right turn, make a quick left turn. Hey, backtrack, go back, retreat, whatever it is. And I think that I could honestly say I've heard all of those so far in my life. I've heard all of those different commands just at different points in my life. But back to being 18 and being pregnant, when you're faced with life staring at you in the face and you have to do something about it, you only have a short window to like make a choice. It's not like you have 365 days to pull your shit together and then report to the duty and receive your next mission. It's like, what are you going to do about this right now? You got to make a quick decision. And I think that in those moments, if we're not actually listening to our gut, we let depression take root. We let fatigue take root. And in my personal life, I can look back and I can think of all the times that I've let all the different things I mentioned take root. And it took so much longer to get out of those things than it did to get into those things. So, the key is that we're kind of like being a good soldier along the way and kind of swatting off this stuff as it's coming at us, because even though that takes a lot of energy, it's going to take a lot less energy than trying to pull ourselves out of these, what I would call the 5 big negative effects of not listening to your gut. And
so you hit on depression a little bit. That's a result. You hit on fatigue. Talk about when you were walking through fatigue, how your gut instincts led you to fatigue. And, there were times where quite literally just getting out of bed was difficult to do. It would have been better just to stay in what we used to call the cave and away from reality, away from the people, away from the issues of life. What did that feel like when you were at those points of fatigue, and what types of frustrations came along with that fatigue?
Well, fatigue is a lonely companion because mentally you're there, but not really. And physically, you have no fight left in you. No fight at all. It's like you feel like you're swinging in the wind, against the wind. There's getting out of bed and putting your shoes on is like out of breath kind of a fatigue feeling. And I could contribute the fatigue in my life to having toxic people in my life. And the sooner that those toxic people were removed was the sooner that the fatigue left. And I don't know, I haven't quite figured out what it is about toxic people and how they can mentally make you feel as though you don't have a fight left in you. Like they can make you believe that you're, I'll just say like worthless, or you're wrong, or they have a good way of putting that all on you. And it feels like they just took a wheelbarrow worth of negative emotions and thoughts and just dumped it on your porch. And now you have to like sort it out before you can get through your front door. But that's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work to properly sort through information and not just like, F them, I'm in the right person. I'm in the right spot. I'm the right person. I have all the right answers. I don't know what they're talking about. But if you're actually like trying to like through humility and love sort through those types of things of people putting their crap on you, it's exhausting because you're having to constantly measure, okay, what part of the street does Amy have to be accountable for? What are the things that Amy should be changing? Does Amy need to be sorry for something? Does Amy need to ask for forgiveness from someone? And if you're constantly keeping an inventory of your side of the street, it can be very exhausting while someone's still piling wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow at your front door and you can't get out. That would be my best explanation of what fatigue actually feels like, because it doesn't feel like you're ever making progress. Fatigue also comes from like just physical sickness, but that is its own category in our conversation today. Physical sickness is something that I didn't realize had such a close connection with our world, like your personal world. Like I didn't realize that was even a thing. I thought it was like, here's your personal world, Erik. You have everything inside your life, and then you have good, bad, and ugly, and then you have physical sickness, and they're not combined. This is the clinical side of your body. This is the emotional side of your body. I did not realize how much the physical side of your body, the emotional side of your body actually are like woven together.
Yes.
Until probably like within the last 5 years. And
Yeah,
I'm 38 now, so.
Yeah, so let's back up. Let's say we're in our early 30s. We're launching some new business directions, ministry directions. And at that time of our lives, people were coming around like crazy, wanting to be a part of what it was that we were doing, offering skills, offering, opinions. And there were certain points where Amy's gut was saying, no, put the brakes on, not right now. Mm-hmm. And I think I, on the other hand, was a little bit more in the zone of, well, let's just see.
Yeah.
Let's just let this run its course.
Yeah, it's almost like that, like, if it happens kind of thing. But that's the crazy part about your gut, is you cannot follow your gut and say, like, if it happens, or you can't use those in the same category.
Right.
And that was the issue that you and I were having together, was you had an agenda and a strategy that you were walking in because you were in a different space than I was.
Yes.
And I was having a major conflict of that physical and that emotional, and then
and just something deep down in your knower that said, no, this isn't right.
Yep.
This isn't right. That person, don't bring them that close, or whatever. And so now, from our 30s, from when I was 30 until now, which I'm 40, in that 10-year span, I can think of wave after wave of times where your gut and even your advice or direction to me was, wait a second, we can't, like, there is something off with this person. There's something off with this direction. Mm-hmm. And when we ignored that,
we paid for it.
We paid like hugely for that. We paid for it in giving some of those people where Amy was saying, no, don't trust that person because they have another agenda and it's not the same agenda. Mm-hmm. And so we would bring them closer, and then we would give them influence. We would give them, even people, we would point people to follow after them because there was a lot going on in our organization. So we were saying, no, you can, this person can lead this and it's not going to do any damage.
Right.
But over the course of time, Amy's gut continued to have red flag after red flag. And then typically it would just be months later, not years, but normally just months, that thing would be exposed for whatever it was. The people would show their true colors. They would show their true agenda. They would rally a split of the organization. Things like that would happen. Mm-hmm. And as you know, listener, Amy's recently gone through some very like
traumatic,
serious like gut clean out, like an actual surgery, that when the doctor got in and looked at the devastation that had happened inside her physical body, some of that devastation was probably just physical makeup and things that were happening. But a big portion of the stress, the anxiety, the worry, those things had a very significant impact on her physical body and led her to physical sickness.
Right.
And this is proven. Many, many studies do show that if your body's racked with stress, racked with depression over long periods of time, it does have an impact on your physical body. It creates physical sickness, which is actually, in my opinion, it's a huge blessing that God built us that way. Because if we're paying attention to are inside and paying attention to our physical bodies, there's indicators that tell us, slow down, fix this, and do that. And when we're not paying attention to those things, the negative impact is total physical disruption.
Right. And it's significant on your way of life. I'm an outgoing person. I don't want to be cooped up in a bedroom, but being cooped up in a bedroom became my comfortability because my physical ailments were so great. I don't even think people realized how great they were. And I do attribute that to the stress, and I do attribute that to not having the right people in your crew. And why we're telling you this now is because when we talk about your gut and the guidance that you can get from your gut, also another way of saying it is like the spirit, your spirit inside of you, that we believe that God imparts his spirit into us. And so that's another GPS system there. And the most comfortable way for a human to understand that is by using this language, the gut guidance. Yep. When you don't listen to your gut, you do pay for it later. And I can say that it's probably by not listening to my gut over the 38 years I've been alive, I think that 10 years out of the 38, I could have had a way better way of life. I think that we would probably be farther down the road in our organization and our businesses and things like that if we wouldn't have just thought of the glass half full, gave people and circumstances like, oh, it'll all work out. It'll all work out. When God opens what's the saying? When God opens
where God guides, God provides. I don't know.
No, it's like something about a door and a window.
If closes a door, opens a window.
Opens a window, yeah. We can kind of like feed ourselves all these fancy little fun quotes that, have hummingbirds swirling around them and things like that. But facts of the matter is that it actually does take a toll on your body.
Yes. And
we want to remind you that it's important that you go with your gut. Now, what we're not saying is that you have an inclination and then like right now, today, this hour, I got the inclination and now, 1 hour later, I'm divorcing my wife because I have this gut feeling that something bad. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying be rogue and like crazy about your gut. But what we are saying is listen to your gut. If you're listening to someone talk, you have to listen. It takes a series of a period of time for you to listen to it. So listen to your gut, meaning, check it out, see what it's saying, what is going on. Let's bounce this off somebody that is in your life that actually knows the inside scoop, not just the pretty side and how the outside looks like. Somebody who actually knows who you are and how you think. Bounce these gut feelings off of them, because we don't want you to live a life of seclusion, because that's ultimately where you end up. You end up being a homebody who doesn't want to talk to anyone because all they're going to say, who hates this? Hi, how are you? And you are not good. And it's like, good, how are you? Right off the gate, it's like, this is terrible. Like I'm dying inside and I can't even express this through words. And if you're a creative person and you have gone through physical sickness and depression and fatigue and seclusion, you know that like that's even a lonelier place to be, is not have the creativity.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you thrive off of the creativity. The creativity is what feeds you, what gives you energy, what, makes you want to crack certain codes, if you will, the strategy of getting through this day and the strategy of getting through whatever your job consists of. When that's missing, it's like, I feel like I'm stuck in the battleship game and at any moment my boat's getting blown up.
Yeah, for sure. So Erik, I want to throw some questions to you. Those top 4 things: depression, fatigue, seclusion, and physical sickness. Any of those Have you seen any of those show up in your life at any point in time that you can recall? And was it connected to any gut instinct that you had?
I'm dealing with all that right now, actually.
Okay.
And I'm really struggling, and I'm pretty depressed currently. And it's the thing that's immediately driving it is I'm struggling with sleep apnea, which I'm working on getting some like medical help for that, but it's just like it's destroying my sleep, which is making me very depressed. So
So that's one component.
yeah.
Are there additional components that you see in your life that could drive those factors?
Probably. I'm not sure that I want to necessarily talk about those publicly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's like you said, the mind-body connection. I mean, the sleep apnea is probably has some deeper thing that's driving that. Mm-hmm. And so, but
you know, when we talk about helping people find their way, and that's a completely transparent moment that Erik just brought to all of us, is that, you know, he's sitting at our table and we're seeking to be people that help people find their call and make life count. And there are factors, because it's like a constant tension that we all walk in. You know, Amie's being vulnerable and expressing her struggles, and we've all walked through them. Erik is communicating some of those right now. And in order to stay in a point of balance, it's like a constant, it's like being on a balance beam almost. Or we used to have a ball that had, you know, it was like a ball, and then
balance ball.
Yeah, like a balance board, because there was a ball, and then there was like a board that went around that, and you'd position your feet on it, and then you'd try to kind of keep life in balance. And as soon as you start leaning more in one direction, then now you're like you're no longer in balance. You're actually like leaning over on something that is causing more devastation in your life. Mm-hmm. Some people get so out of balance that the only sanity that they can bring to their life is substances. Mm-hmm. That's where alcoholism, it's where, you know, medications, things of that nature, they give us a high in order to level off the low. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's an outside stimulus that is causing that to happen. And what we're attempting to do is we're attempting to help create pathways and conversation points to help people make decisions that lead them to lands of like joy and peace and love and all of those good things. But if we don't take seriously our calling, take seriously our passions, all of those things, we land in depression and fatigue and misery in places that we don't want to live. And again, Amie and I speak as experts on this subject. And I'm not saying that to pat ourselves on the back. I'm saying that because we've journeyed these lands and we've opted to continue to press forward no matter what the opposition is, no matter what person tries to tear down or any of those things. And this gut inclination, this spirit guidance system, this internal guidance system is really the factor that can cause somebody to have enough courage to actually make a change.
Yep.
We've said this quote a few times in the 16 episodes that we've conveyed thus far, but Dr. Henry Cloud wrote in one of his books, it could have been Necessary Endings, or it could have been the book Boundaries, but he wrote that this thought that until the pain of change, or it's a little bit of a tongue twister, and I always seem to get it wrong. So if I do, I'll come back.
Yeah,
but
right.
Until the pain of change or until the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, then you stay stuck in your circumstance. Is that the right way of saying it?
And until the pain of change, until the pain of staying the same
is greater.
Yeah, is greater than the pain of change. You will always be stuck in your circumstances.
Yeah.
Meaning, breaking it down, meaning most people, the fear of change, the pain of change is way higher than just like staying with whatever they are currently in.
Yeah.
But at some point, if you're being led or your gut is telling you to go, at some point that scale is going to swap.
Yep.
And now it's going to be like the pain of change is going to be easier than staying in this misery that I'm in.
Picture it kind of like this. Have you ever seen those people that walk on like coals? You know, and this kind of sucks to think of life like this, but on one side of the bed of coals that you have to walk through to get to the good land, you're stuck in a circumstance, and it's almost like there's fire pressing in on you, and it's putting heat on you, and you're staying in that one spot because you're like, well, I don't want to go across those coals because that's going to hurt. But you have this blowtorch that's coming at you, and at some point that blowtorch is going to get so hot, the fire is going to get so bright, it's going to actually start to incinerate you if you don't decide, I've got to run those coals. And at some point, it's just way more to stay where I am than it is to go to where I'm called to go. Even though you know that that's going to hurt my feet, I know if I stay here, it's gonna kill me. And but if I go there, then there's at least the chance of getting away from this.
Right.
And that's kind of the idea. And there's escape routes, and people take escape routes from pain constantly. We're always looking to escape into something that kind of shelters us from whatever it is that's hurting us or harming us. The problem with that is if we don't have a good plan or a good method to get to a better land, then we just basically do as Amie said. We hide in the room, we seclude ourselves, and we allow those things to overwhelm us, and then life is just completely miserable. Mm-hmm. In the book Wayfinder, we tell stories. My personal story, some of Amy's story is actually being tailored. I'm excited about this. We tell a story of a gentleman named Donnie, where life was painful for us, and that pain drove us to the point of desperation to do something different. So essentially where we're going here is that our guts, our intuition, our spirit guidance, if we're bumping into roads of misery, then that gut instinct, it can cause us to take new pathways. Mm-hmm. And those new pathways can be very, very positive. Very positive. Life is not meant to be miserable. Nope. It's not. We were created to commune with the Creator. Mm-hmm. And when we are not communing with that Creator, which is the ultimate source of life, the ultimate source of charge or energy or power, then we stay in this domain of disconnection. Mm-hmm. And we're not meant to be disconnected.
No.
We're meant to be connected.
The opposite of that.
And this world wants to pull us to dysfunction. And
Despair.
God's, just saying, hey, like right here, like I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to show you. Mm-hmm. There were certain points where I prayed this prayer for myself and my family, and publicly for even hundreds of people. I would say, I pray that if you're not on the right road, that you get real miserable. Mm-hmm. And that does not always mean you have to relocate. It doesn't always mean you have to get out of your current
No, most of the time it's a
circumstance.
mental and a physical issue. It's not really like what you're doing with your 8 to 5 or what do you live on Stagecoach, or do you live on Alta Sierra? Do you live on Buena Vista? Where do you live? It's not what we're talking about. It's that it's what's guiding you inside. And when we say get on a new road, we're meaning what is dictating your forward progress.
Yes.
What's the motor in your boat?
Yes. Yeah, the internal system. Mm-hmm. we pulled up to our restaurant just this morning, and Erik would know this. We spent a lot of time redesigning the inside of the restaurant. And Amie pointed out, she said, Neal, do you realize that every time we buy a building, we always redo the inside? And then when we are really good on the inside, then we make something over on the outside. Mm-hmm. And we're getting to that point, and Erik would attest to this, where the inside of this restaurant is getting pretty clean. In fact, even the back of the restaurant, meaning the kitchen, which many would say is the heart of the restaurant.
And by clean, we don't mean sanitary. We mean like function, flow, systems, design, processes.
Yeah, it's a space where it's like, wow, people want to just stay here. Mm-hmm. We're opening a what we call Eagle Eye. And Erik, you talk about Eagle Eye sometimes. What do you think about that space?
Oh, it's my favorite space at Ewing's.
How come?
The feng shui is amazing.
And you've said often, like, you're a coffee connoisseur. You're like, dude, I could just chill back here.
I just want to hang out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And wouldn't that be incredible if our interior spaces of our lives were just places where we could just like sit in peace? It's like, oh.
That's a perfect time for me to share the scripture. In many times when I would be laid up in pain from the scale of 0 to 10, pain being 12, this scripture was like something that I felt like was dropped in our lap through multiple people, and just seeking out like, why, you know that throw yourself on the floor, why God? Actually, before I share the scripture, I have to tell a funny story.
Tell the story.
Okay.
That's a good one.
So my buddy goes to the CHP Academy, and he'd come home like every couple of weeks, and I'd say, tell me something funny that happened in the academy. And he said, well, yesterday we had to do the pepper spray thing. So they all had to stand up, put their hands behind their backs, and then the sergeant or whoever would walk through and close to your face spray you with pepper spray. And then there was a certain amount of time where you like, don't react. And he said that this one...
Well, and because you had to learn, I think part of the tactic is you got to learn how it feels.
Yes.
And you got to learn in the event, like how to deal with the pain.
Yeah, during something like that happening to you. So he says that the gal a few rows down from him gets sprayed, knows it's coming, right? Like signed up for this. He sprays her in the face, and immediately she screams, "Why, God?" and drops to her knees with her hands out.
Like flopping around like a fish out of water.
Like, I'm sorry, hun, but I don't think God had anything to do with this. You signed yourself up for this, babe. Yeah. This was your choice.
Yeah.
But since then, the why God thing has kind of been like a comedic outlet for me.
People will do that all the time. Like I get totally annihilated in their life and then say, why God?
Why God? Why'd my wife leave me? I don't know. Are you hammered drunk when she comes home and you call her bad names? Yes. Probably wasn't God that made her leave you. I don't know. Just saying. Anyways, the scripture, it's found in Isaiah. It says, you will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast because he trusts you.
Yeah.
And if you just like water that down, basically it's saying like our Creator will help us not only like have peace, contain peace, give peace, if our mind is steadfast on just trusting him. And so there's so many circumstances, whether it's your health, it doesn't matter if you got yourself in the mess. It doesn't matter that I didn't pick the right people to be in my life and they created so much pain and anxiety in my life that I had physical issues because of it. God still, in those moments, he still gave me peace if I was trusting in him.
Yes.
And there's like those little caveats. It's like, if if we trust him, peace is something that comes with that.
Yes.
And so it's not like, well, you've done screwed up, Amie. You got all the wrong people in your life, and I don't think you should do anything except get out of town. If that's where you are in your mindset, I want to just like remind you that it's never too late to take a break, take a pause, regather, reconfigure the elements that are, one, coming into your life, that you're allowing into your life, but then two, how you're viewing yourself. And there's something to be said about like that mental, I don't want to call it mental stability, because I don't think it's like about being stable. It's about what?
Well, the word trust, that means solidity. It means to be on solid ground. Yes. And it, depending on what you're trusting,
right,
determines that. So when we're speaking in this context, we're saying trust, it's in the Lord, it's in God. And so it means to attach yourself to something that is immovable,
right,
unshakable, absolutely solid. Everything apart from that ground, if we're trusting in anything else, then it is shakeable and it is movable. So that's where it's, God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in him.
Exactly. And that is easy to do. That doesn't happen by going to church from 10 to 11. It doesn't happen by having your home group every Wednesday night. It doesn't happen because you did the Hail Marys and you wore your cross necklace, and it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with your gut,
with an internal anchor.
Yeah, and being vulnerable enough to say, "Man, this sucks. I hate being in my bedroom and being super sick and not wanting to go out and see people, and I don't want to do this anymore. God, what can I do? What way? What do I need to, what part of my gut am I not listening to?" Because if we get real specific in our questions, he'll get real specific in his answers.
Absolutely. When I was younger, 19 years old, before Amy and I got married, I write about this in Wayfinder, life became very miserable for me. It didn't even look like it was horrible on the outside, but on the inside, it was miserable. Mm-hmm. And I was struggling because I was using substances to help get me out of the funk. And again, I'm not downing substances. I still enjoy a beer, wine, or whatever. But I was really depending on, smoking pot all day, every day. I was depending on all these different substances to kind of be my uplift. And it was just landing me in a bad zone. And so I through the grace of God, was able to stop doing those substances for a little bit. And then what I found is I was living in an environment that was, everybody else was doing them. So it was very difficult to not do them when it was happening all around me. Mm-hmm. And I could have just up and bailed out of the house. I could have moved out, could have went to a new friend's house, could have moved home, could have done any of those things. But I'm thankful that I didn't. I stayed in that house, and I dealt with those demons and those struggles, and I overcame them in the middle of what could have been said, well, that's your problem. You're in this miserable location. Mm-hmm. No, it didn't have anything to do with the external miseries. Right. It had everything to do with the internal stuff that was going on in me. And was I a happy person here? Mm-hmm. Because I think it's a beautiful thought that even if all hell is breaking loose around us, if we have internal stability and we've listened and we've taken our cues, we can be in perfect peace in the middle of the greatest storms.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of just prompted, I think, because we all deal with this stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's an ongoing thing. It's not like, okay, well, we're done with this podcast, so great. Catch you on episode 17. This is like a part of life. It's an ongoing thing. We don't master it and then put it away and bury it and then move on to the next thing. It's something that we carry throughout our entire life.
Yeah. And I think the ultimate point here is that the outside circumstances, they can be a factor in your inside misery, but ultimately your inside misery is something that you have to master wherever you are.
Right. But we have to take our cues from our gut. Mm-hmm. And if we don't take our cues from our gut, we pay the price physically. And that does affect more than just our individual self.
Right.
More people.
Right.
So if you're stuck out there and you're like, I'm stuck in fatigue, I'm stuck in depression, have no creativity, I have no drive, any of those things that we mentioned, now would be a great time for you to start becoming a detective on your own life and take that magnifying glass and look around in those dark spots and look around at the people that you're allowing to talk to you a certain way. Look at look at your scenario with whoever's in your home. Look at the scenario and really start to critique and decide what is meant to last and what is meant to change.
Yeah.
And if it's meant to change, you don't have to do it like with a wand beating somebody over the head, but heart-to-heart conversation about like, this is my expectation of what I'm needing. If it has to do with someone else, or if it has to do with something that is inside of you that you need to change, you probably should share that with a safe person so that you can get it off your chest, and then they can help you along the way as well.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than feeling all bottled up alone and you don't have anyone to share these things with, and no one understands you, and you feel like the black sheep, and you're trying to keep a good smile on your face when you go out in public and all of that. I lived through all of that, and it's miserable.
It is.
And you can change. Today can be your defining moment to say enough is enough. I'm not going to be sick. Enough is enough. Point. I'm not going to have this dark filter in my eyes. Enough is enough. I'm not going to be talked to like that by this person. I'm not going to be made to feel like I'm worthless and I can't do anything.
Yes.
That's not what your creator says about you. So let's put things in the right perspective, put them in the right order, and then move on.
Yes. This is what we've written about. We've written a lot about this particular subject in Wayfinder. I think that what we should do is on the next episode go into the last effect of the vision of your life and the strategy of your life. Those things die when you're stuck in depression, physical ailments, being isolated, in solitude, all of those things. We've got to deal with those things because what absolutely happens is when you lose the vision for your life, the strategy for your life, where you're trying to go, man, you've got to stop. You've got to assess. You've got to realign and then get going in that direction. Amie and I are huge in terms of vision and strategy, and the times where we've been suffered, where our families suffered, our businesses have suffered, and we've suffered, are when we didn't listen to our gut. We landed in these zones, and then it's like, no, we still have this pressure to go and to take the mountain, but we can't even get out of base camp. Can't even get out of bed, which is in base camp, because we're so freaking exhausted because we didn't listen along the way.
Yep.
And so rest and recuperation and really focusing on taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it can get your energy back.
Yep.
And then once you get your energy back, it's like, okay, now let's take this new hill. But when you try to take the new hill and you don't have what it takes to get
depleted.
To the top, it's a challenge. So, yeah, we believe it. We truly believe that life is meant to be bright. When that sun comes up in the morning, we're sitting in this room right now, and it's a room I've come to love. The sun will come up, and I'll see the light shine through the trees, and I'll see the little chipmunks and squirrels and birds come in and land on the branches and do all their things. There's joy in that. There's excitement in that. But when life is dark and you sit here and it's like the sun's coming up and it's like, oh, great, another day.
Yeah, it's like the version of like, ah, yeah, yeah, on Enchanted. Remember, like all the birds and everybody's like partying and like, ah. And then it's like, oh, now we're going into Jafar's land.
Ooh.
Jafar. It's dark, red, and sienna and black.
Yeah.
No joy or happiness ever found.
Life is not meant to be lived like that.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, that's the way that many of us live our lives. And even, Amie and I, people would look at us and we've had people say this over and over, man, we envy what you have in your family life. We envy what you have. You seem to always be happy. you know what? It took a lot of internal work to get to that point. And it took I dove deep in my internal work in my late teens, early 20s. Now I'm at a point where I can effectively teach this stuff. But back then I was in a tangled up mess. Now we want to help people get out of their own messes and get on with the mission that God has called each of us to. So,
Erik, any thoughts?
I can't think of any right now.
Well, I think maybe over time, Erik will have his tune change, because I can see he's ripe and ready for it. And then maybe someday he'll be like, you know what? Boom. This is no longer the Neal and Amie podcast. This is the Erik podcast, and I'm leading this mother.
He mutes our mic.
Yeah, he's like, now I'm in control of this board here, and it's my turn to talk.
I never mute mics.
That's not a thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to the Erik podcast, where we talk about plywood, sound checks, and depression.
Oh.
all very applicable things to talk about in this day and age.
Absolutely. Hey, we want to thank you for listening. We definitely want to encourage you to keep your ears and eyes peeled for the Wayfinder book that's on its way. We're moving close to a new year. This episode was actually recorded in right around early December and moving into 2021. And at this point in time, America, the world's gone through a global pandemic where people are cooped up in homes, and depression is a very real thing. So we're pivoting and we're seeing positivity starting to take shape. So if you're on that journey with us, we would totally encourage you to share this podcast out there with your friends, get people listening to it and supporting it, and help us get this message out to help as many people as we possibly can. And Erik, I love it when you close with your little
like, comment, share, subscribe. Am I forgetting one?
I don't know.
Our blog
about our podcast.
You could go to nealandamie.com to check out some of those resources. And I think that's it.
I think so. Life's too short to be
to be dumb and miserable.
Life's too short to live miserable. So what are you going to do about it?
Take some steps.
That's right. Bye-bye for now.
All right. Later.